I remember the smell of the rain that morning, that strange metallic scent that sticks to the air before everything falls apart. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping cold coffee, staring at the unpaid bills that had started to pile up like an accusation. My mother was upstairs, humming. My sister, Mia, had texted me an hour before saying, "I need to move in for a while, things aren't good with me and Josh." I stared at the screen for a long time. My stomach sank. Mia, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, was coming home. Again. When she arrived later that evening, dragging 3 designer suitcases behind her and wearing that fake, trembling smile, my mother's face lit up like it was Christmas morning. They hugged in the doorway as if I wasn't even there. I stood in the kitchen, invisible, like a stain on the floor. "Lana, help your sister with her things," Mom said, her tone already shifting, that sharp, dismissive voice that only appeared when I was around. I carried Mia's luggage upstairs to the guest room, which had been my makeshift art studio for 2 years. My canvases leaned against the wall, half-finished, covered in color and dust. Mom appeared behind me, her hands clasped together. "Sweetheart, you don't mind giving this room to Mia for a while, do you?" The way she said it made it clear I didn't have a choice. "It's fine," I said quietly. But inside, something twisted. Mia smiled, her eyes scanning the space. "I'll only be here a few weeks," she said. "You know, until I figure things out." But a few weeks turned into months. At first, I tried to stay out of their way. I worked double shifts at the diner and came home late. But slowly, everything began to shift, like the house itself was tilting toward Mia. Mom started making dinner again, but only for the 2 of them. She'd leave my plate on the counter, cold. I'd walk in to laughter echoing from the kitchen, the same laughter that had vanished years ago when Dad died. Then, one night, I heard my name. "She's always been jealous," Mia said, her voice sweet and venomous. "You know how she is, Mom. Always playing the victim." My mother sighed. "I know. She just never learned how to take responsibility." My hand froze on the doorknob. My chest burned. I wanted to burst in, scream, but instead, I turned around and walked back upstairs. Something inside me cracked that night, not loud enough to hear, but deep enough to change everything. A week later, I came home early from work to find my paintings stacked outside the guest room door. The canvases were slashed, torn like garbage bags. Mia was sitting on the bed, her legs crossed, painting her nails. "Oh," she said, looking up, "Mom said I could have more space. You didn't mind, right?" I couldn't speak. I just stared at her, at the shredded pieces of months of work, my passion, my therapy, my one escape. My mother walked in behind me. "Don't make a scene, Lana. It's just stuff." Something in my chest went still. That night, I slept in the basement. The smell of mold and cold cement filled my lungs, and for the first time, I realized this wasn't my home anymore. I was just a guest in a place I'd spent my whole life helping pay for. Because here's what they always forgot, the house was mine too. After Dad died, I'd been the one paying the mortgage. Every month, I wired half my paycheck to Mom's account. She didn't have the income to keep it without me. She'd never said thank you. Then, one morning, everything snapped. I woke up to find my suitcase by the door. My mother was sitting at the table, her arms crossed. Mia stood beside her, smirking faintly. "We've talked," Mom said, her voice calm, rehearsed. "It's best if you find somewhere else to stay. You're bringing too much negativity into the house." I laughed, that kind of sharp, hollow laugh that comes when you can't believe the absurdity. "You're kicking me out," I said slowly, "from the house that I pay for?" Mom's expression didn't waver. "It's my name on the deed, Lana. I think it's time you grow up and move on." I felt my throat tighten. The world tilted again, like gravity had betrayed me. Mia leaned against the counter. "Don't take it personally," she said softly. "We just need peace right now." Peace. I stared at them, two people I once would have died for, and realized I didn't recognize them anymore. I packed my things in silence. As I zipped my last bag, my mother said, "You'll thank me one day." I didn't answer. I just walked out into the rain. But here's the thing about being underestimated, it gives you time. Time to think. Time to plan. For the first few weeks, I stayed on a friend's couch. I worked extra shifts, saved every dollar, and bided my time. Because there was something my mother and sister didn't know, something they never bothered to understand. When my father passed away, he left a clause in the mortgage documents, one my mother had never read. He'd added my name as a cosigner. And the agreement was clear: if either party stopped paying, ownership could be transferred or liquidated. I'd been making those payments for 5 years straight. I had every receipt, every record. So, one quiet afternoon, I walked into the bank. The woman behind the desk looked up. "How can I help you?" I smiled. "I'd like to transfer ownership of a property." 2 weeks later, I stopped sending payments. By the third month, I started getting calls from my mother. At first, I ignored them. Then came the texts. "Lana, the bank sent me a notice." "What's happening?" "Please call me, they're saying we're behind on payments." I didn't respond. Then one night, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Mia. "Wow," she wrote. "So this is your revenge? You'd let Mom lose the house just to prove a point?" I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "I'm not proving a point," I typed. "I'm just letting you live with the choices you made." After that, silence. A month later, the foreclosure notice went through. The house, our house, went up for sale. I heard through a neighbor that they'd tried to fight it, but there was no saving it. When I finally drove by one last time, a for sale sign stood in the yard. The windows were dark, the curtains drawn. The garden, once blooming with roses, was wilted and gray. I sat there for a long time, engine running, rain tapping on the windshield. And I realized something that hurt more than anything: I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. Because I remembered every night in that cold basement, every insult whispered behind my back, every painting torn apart like it was worthless. Justice doesn't always come with sirens or screams. Sometimes, it comes quietly, in the form of a bank notice, a silence that echoes through empty halls. Months later, I got an email from the realtor. The house had sold. After the debts were cleared, a check arrived in my name, my portion of the equity. I used it as the down payment for a small apartment downtown, nothing fancy, but it was mine. My walls, my rules, my peace. One evening, I was unpacking when there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find Mia standing there. Her eyes were swollen, her hair tangled. "Can I come in?" she whispered. I hesitated, then stepped aside. She walked in, looking around like she couldn't believe I'd made it without them. "Mom's staying with Aunt Carol," she said quietly. "She's angry. Says you betrayed her." I leaned against the counter. "Did I?" Mia's eyes filled with tears. "She's losing it, Lana. She says it was your father's house. She says he'd never forgive you." I smiled faintly. "Dad left it to both of us. You just forgot that part." She wiped her face. "So that's it? You're just done?" I looked at her for a long moment. "You burned my art. You helped her throw me out like trash. You called it peace." She looked down, shame flickering across her face. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she whispered. "Neither did I," I said softly. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "You got what you wanted, didn't you?" I thought about that for a moment. "No," I said. "I got what I deserved." When the door closed behind her, I stood there in silence, the city lights flickering through the window. I picked up my brush, dipped it in paint, and started on a new canvas, a storm of color and shadow, chaos and peace intertwined. For the first time in years, I felt free. They thought they'd taken my home. But in truth, I'd only given them a chance to destroy themselves. And they did, beautifully.